Some good news out of Washington. This is the focus group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the focus group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We thank you all for joining us here every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. East. Also, thanks to those of you that join our podcast, which is Tuesdays, every Tuesday morning, and that's called TFG Unbuttoned. Thanks to the boys in the booth, Garrett and Steve, for bringing us to you each week. And Mr. Nash, how are you?
I'm doing good. I right before we came on air, I was telling the boys in the booth, Steve and Garrett, that when you have this camera thing and you're staring into it all the time, I can understand why people in Hollywood start getting kind of, squirrely about how they look and how they start suddenly visiting plastic surgeons, because you say, you know what, maybe my nose is crooked or my eye, So I think I have to not look at myself. That's what I'm going to do. But doing well. I was telling the guys
now you're just deciding you're going to start looking at yourself after all these years?
I know. I was telling the guys that this was Mother's Day in a way. Friday, Bob and I drove down to see my mom and her husband. We picked up dinner in Woodbury and then drove up and sat on her deck. We were all separated. There was a nice little breeze so that, particles were going somewhere else, and it was delightful to physically see my mom again. She was so happy to have us there. It was a relaxing time, and we stayed outside basically, and then we hopped in the car, and we had masks and stuff, but we didn't wear them all the time. And then yesterday we took Bob's mom out to lunch at an Italian restaurant in Jersey, and it was actually, the tension was picking her up at her apartment complex where they asked you a million questions when you pulled in. Have you been here? Have you been there? Have you done this? Have you done that? Then they let you through, and then we couldn't go in. She came out. We took her to this place. We had a really sweet lunch. It was lots of fun, and it was the second day that Jersey was in their opening segmentation, and so other people had come out, and the waiter was just clearly very happy to have people at the restaurant again. It was really, he was so cool, and they're taking all the efforts to make sure everything's done correctly. And so it was so nice to just sit outside, have other people around, and have a nice lunch. So
yeah, it's still, I'm in Delaware, and it's still very much Delaware is, I would say, as far as I'm concerned, back to normal, other than you have to wear a mask into the restaurant. But everything's open. All the stores are open. Shops are open. Outlets are open. People are traveling. Route 1 is busy. Hotels are booking people. So it's beaches are crowded. So it's it almost feels like it's normal summer.
Yeah, you bring up a great point about traffic. That was my barometer for figuring out where we're at in this. And when we were in New Jersey yesterday driving towards upstate, the amount of traffic, including truck traffic, was indistinguishable from what it had been possibly in February or March before all this happened. So I think everything's on the move, and I just actually watched Cuomo's press conference this morning, one of his last, actually, because now they're going to go back to running the state, as he's been doing, and the numbers look good, and so, off to a good week. June is looking like a good month, and you kicked us off with some news that these decisions come from the Supreme Court at interesting times, don't they? So usually like during Pride Month, and this was a one that we've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, the Supreme Court, unless you've been under a rock, the Supreme Court has voted 6-3 in favor of non-discrimination to LGBTQ people. So essentially under the Civil Rights Act, that LGBTQ people are in fact covered under that for employment discrimination. And many said that, I was listening to some pundits, and many said they felt this was a much bigger decision than even marriage, because not everybody will get married, but of course everybody wants a job, right?
That's a great analysis, actually, and I agree with that, because a lot of people don't know or didn't know that I think that you could be fired or let go from your job in upwards of 21 or 22 states. Maybe it's even high as 26. that had nothing on the books that would protect you based on your sexual orientation. Now, the thing that fascinated me most about this decision was it was written by Neil Gorsuch, which was the president's first appointee to the Supreme Court. And when the case was heard months ago, a number of legal analysts suspected that it would go this way based on his record of interpreting. He's a textualist, so he looks at the text of the law and sometimes, infers what that means. And I just have three quick things that I want to read about that. He says that Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion was viewed as a major coup by gay rights advocates. They hoped his professed devotion to textualism, an often literal approach to reading congressional enactments, would persuade him to embrace a view that LGBT discrimination is sex discrimination because it involves treating someone differently, at least in part due to gender. Gorsuch did just that, sounding unequivocal in his conclusion about the half-century-old workplace discrimination ban known as Title VII. And directly from his opinion, my favorite part, which they quoted frequently, an employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of a different sex. Sex plays a necessary and undisguisable role in the decision, exactly what Title VII forbids. There you have it, right?
Yeah, no, it was a huge event. I would say I was a tad I was surprised and also I guess a tad emotional that I didn't expect myself to be because as many people know, as being identified as others for so long and just growing up with the fact that I'm just not going to be treated as every other American, I thought this was just a huge deal. And thank you to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, thank you. And what a surprise. What a surprise. Naturally, criticism to the decision fell along obvious fault lines. We're not even going to discuss that here. I did also want to... Go ahead.
No, go on.
I just saw you take a breath. I was going to say that to not belabor that, a lot of people have talked about this decision. It's amazing. It's going to have an effect on huge numbers of things the administration has been attempting to do over the past 3 years. Another little thing caught my eye, though, around the same time, and it was this strange little article I read about dentists. And I know it sounds like it doesn't really relate.
Where's this going?
So economists, people who study the economy, look at the dental profession, specifically dentists and dentist office, as a way of gauging the health of the economy, which I think is so interesting. And it says here, dentist offices tend to be stable businesses that stick around for decades, unlike restaurants that open and close frequently. Dentists earn a healthy salary, median income $159,000 a year, and offer services with no clear substitute. If you need your teeth cleaned or a cavity filled, the dentist is the only option. This makes them, in the eyes of some economists, the perfect barometer for gauging the country's recovery. If you look at your typical dentist office, nothing went wrong with their business model. It just happened that the event came along, back in March. So what they're looking at now is how many dental offices are bringing back their technicians and how many patients are returning to the office. And they're going to use that as a gauge for how well the economy is doing. I just thought that was amusing. Dentists. Who thought?
I thought you were correlating that with the Supreme Court decision. This was just an offshoot, caught my eye. Anything else you want to catch us up on today? That's a non sequitur.
No, I'll leave it at that. And I think we have Billy joining us from New York. Hey, Billy, welcome to the program today.
Good afternoon.
Are you guys pleased with the decision? Obviously, I bet you are from the Supreme Court. And were you surprised?
I've been fired for being gay at the great Johnson Controls. So this is really, really good because private companies for a long time can just say, oh, you do a great job, but you don't fit the norm. We have to let you go.
Were you guys surprised by the decision? Like, it came out of nowhere. Tim and I were on a phone call, and Tim said, hey, breaking news. And we both hopped off and checked our variety of sources, and it just seemed like
what a hot mess our country is right now, this was really surprising.
Well said.
Right, and the fact that the decision was written also, or the opinion was written by the appointee from Trump was also icing on the cake.
Well, Mike Pence is he's the purveyor of closetness.
Well, yeah, I saw a bunch of memes. People said now Lindsey Graham and Mike Pence can't be fired for being gay.
There you go.
I saw that at a bunch of places.
Well, I just want to check in, boys. I got an appointment to get to myself. Not my teeth, but I'll catch you on the fly.
All right,
Thanks.
Billy. Thanks for checking in. Not my teeth.
Hey, we want to thank Magic Spoon. This episode of the Focus Group is brought to you in part by Magic Spoon. It's a new cereal company that's discovered a way to recreate your favorite childhood cereals with 0 sugar, 12 grams of protein, and only 3 net grams of carbs in each serving. So let me repeat that. There's 0 sugar, 12 grams of protein, and only 3 net grams of carbs. And they offer 4 different flavors. They've got cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. They're keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. It sounds too good to be true. It tastes delicious. John, I know you're a huge fan.
I'm on my 3rd multi-pack order, and I noticed in the picture you pulled to talk about Magic Spoon that there's a cinnamon flavor.
Yes, but there is a cinnamon flavor, but I have not tried that one yet. It was in limited supply.
I'm going to need to try that.
Order.
All right, so cereal has been one of the things that a constant in my life growing up, and I loved it as a kid. I mean, Tim and I laugh about cereal all the time because we grew up with this stuff. And then it went away because when you start eating healthy, a lot of cereal is just not, it's just loaded with sugar. So as Tim said earlier, 0 grams sugar, 12 grams of protein, only 3 net grams of carbs in each serving. This is a new go-to thing for me. It's my maybe 10 o'clock at night, 9:30, 10 snack. And by the way, I should point out, for me at least, I do measure it. So I do pour it into, like, if it says a serving's a cup or whatever, that's my serving. So I know I'm getting 12 grams.
Poor Bob. Poor Bob. There's no fun at that house at all, is there?
And then the other thing we do with it, and this is where I don't even pay attention, is I eat it dry as well. It's a snack food. And I love the taste of each of the flavors. I was really, really pleasantly surprised and super happy to recommend it to anybody. And as I said, I'm on my 3rd multi-pack order, and I rotate them. Like, I'll open one, then I'll open the other. I think so far cocoa and fruity and frosted are my favorite, although blueberry is climbing up there, and I have to get that cinnamon. So we would love you to go to magicspoon.com/focus to grab a variety pack and try it today. And if you use the code FOCUS, FOCUS at checkout, you're going to get free shipping. So again, I would go to magicspoon.com/focus, use the code FOCUS for free shipping, and discover what we have rediscovered about what we used to love about Saturday mornings, because that's actually when we were allowed to have a lot of cereal, was Saturday mornings. Were you the same way in your household?
We ate it every day. We ate it pretty much every day. Unless weekends, my mom would make eggs or maybe pancakes or something, but cereal was the go-to to get us out on the bus off to school. And I've now discovered, too, which is bad, I put the cocoa on some vanilla ice cream, which is delicious as a little treat.
Tim, you always go above and beyond. You are so clever. Thank you for this idea. Thank you. So magicspoon.com/focus. Use the code FOCUS. Get 10%. Get free shipping. I'm sorry. Get free shipping. All righty.
Cool. So, Mr. Nash, what caught your eye this week besides the dentist?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Yeah, no, the dentist as a barometer of the economy. Many of you who listen to our show are also fans of DNR, and Romaine has a often hilarious Facebook feed. And the other day, a post of hers popped up in mine, and I couldn't stop laughing. And the post had a picture that we're showing you, and it had the following. It said, "Had to go to the pharmacy to pick up my meds and came across this. WTF, a toy companion cat for old people. How is this a real thing? By the way, it was $106. So woo! I did some research, and yes, indeed, there is this thing called it's called Hasbro Joy for All, and it's a robot pet. And the Joy for All companion pet cats look. There's a dog too. They look and feel and sound like real cats, but there's so much more than soft fur and soothing purrs and pleasant meows. These cats respond to petting, hugging, and motion. I just so I don't even know if I put the URL in there, but if you go to joyforall.com, there is this video of the cat and the dog doing things. Like, so they distribute them to people in senior living facilities and stuff like that. And the cat blinks its eyes, it meows, it lifts its paw up too now, and then the paw goes up and then down. So this toy caught my eye, and of course it needs four batteries, 4 C-size batteries. Could you imagine the cat running down? Ooh, my cat's dead. Get a new battery for that kitty.
My pussy, stop purring. I don't know. It's just, I guess it makes noise. It meows and purrs and does all
purrs.
that.
The more you pet it, then it starts to purr. And and there's there's 3 styles of cats. There's a tabby, a black cat, and a gray one. And then there's this puppy. And the puppy, they show this old guy holding the puppy, and he says, "That smile is irresistible." And the dog opens its mouth and closes it, and then they show this kid. Here we go. They have the video.
Wouldn't it be nice to bring joy, happiness, and comfort to your aging loved ones?
Oh, aging loved one.
Good girl. With lifelike fur, authentic sounds, and realistic reactions that fill their hearts with love and laughter.
This is the kind of a dog to have.
I have a surprise.
It's a cat.
Wow.
It's really something. It makes you feel happy.
Joy for all companion pets make joy, comfort, and companionship happen.
They make you feel that you're not alone. She makes you feel soothed. The purring is very comforting.
He's got a smile that anybody would love.
Give the gift of joy and comfort with Joy for all companion pets.
I'm not so sure some of those people knew those were fake pets. Oh, here's your cat. Okay.
Quite possible. I just, this is one of those things, if it can be invented, it will be invented. If it's, I don't know, I think a real animal would be nice. I think they bring those into facilities like that all the time to meet with the old folks. But there you go.
Hey, you don't have to clean it. You don't have to walk it. No vet bills. Just some battery charges. That's about it. I'm gonna look for one of those. I'm gonna get you one for Christmas.
Get me the tabby.
Want a cat?
I think the tabby cat. Yeah.
Tabby. Okay.
I might try. Hey, I might try a dog. Why not? Right?
We'll get both.
His cute little bandana on. The little puppy with the bandana. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's very good. My story, I guess, or what caught my eye was something that I actually fell for, but I didn't fall for it far enough. But I fell for it because it was such an incredibly well done scam. So on Facebook and on Instagram, there's a page that's offering LL Bean clothing, and particularly the popular LL Bean boots, for $20. And they made it sound like in the advertisement that because of the event, there was oversupply of these things and they needed to get rid of them. And the prices were $26, $20 for the famous LL Bean hunting shoe. And you and I, John, having been up to the factory and watched them get made, to me, it was impossible to think that there would be this glut of them. But I thought, well, maybe so. So I thought I'm going to do some early holiday shopping. So I got on, I started going through, and as I got to the 4th or 5th item, and it said if you spend over $70, you get free shipping. Something just made it click in my head and said, this is just way too good to be true. They had all my sizes. They had everything that I wanted. And so then I started poking around the internet and found out, in fact, it is a scam that's being run by a computer company in Singapore. And after you put your computer information and all your information it just goes blank. They have all your financial information. You don't get any boots or any shoes, and you're out of luck. And people have contacted LL Bean. LL Bean is obviously upset. They're using LL Bean real images, real pictures, real photography from their catalogs. They have 2 different websites, llbeanonlinestore.shop and llbeanstore.club. And if you go to the websites, again, it looks like it's LL Bean. They're using the actual catalog photography, actual product photography. And so thankfully, I went and started poking around and seeing that this was a scam, and everybody said not to do it. And they said if it was too good to be true, of course, it's the old adage that it is. What I think is shameful is that Facebook and Instagram are allowing this to occur. And despite the fact that I guess the federal government's now involved, as well as LL Bean, to say, please take down these sites, they haven't done it yet. And I'm sure a lot of people have fallen for this. So beware. I don't know if
told me about this,
I don't know if the guys could pull up the site. If you can go to that site there, maybe that you could see, and you could see how perfectly it is, and what they've done with it, and the pricing. I mean, it's unbelievable, the prices. And then, so it was too good to be true.
So is that what eventually tipped you off? Was this, as your cart filled up and you're like, I'm getting all this stuff for like $75 or something like that, and you're like, okay, this is a problem.
Well, everybody was going to get boots. I mean, these boots are usually $120, $100. So at $20, I thought, I'm buying everybody boots. Even if I just saw you on the street, I give you a pair of boots. If you're watching on the video, there's the screen. And so after I started loading them all up and thought, this is really weird, they have my size and everything. It wasn't like there was only 2 or 3 sizes if it was really a wholesale blowout. And then I got suspicious, and that's when I poked around. But no matter what I looked for, they had every size. I looked at the moccasins, which are close to $100. They had those for, I think, $23. And, they made it this advertisement on Facebook and Instagram and other social media is essentially that, we have to get rid of this stuff because of the event, and we're just trying to blow things out, winter product, and buy it now. And I just look at these actual pictures from the catalog. And
I was as Steve is scrolling through this. These are adopt kits. Like they literally went onto the site.
What is this? $6.99 or how much is it? I can't read that. $6.09.
But it says $6.99 and normally $40. Yeah, because that's the normal price was $39.99 or something for the small one. Wow, Tim, it's like you can do this, right? You can go online, you can screen grab stuff, you could screen grab a logo, and they built this up. But you got to this through, as you said, Facebook and Instagram, and I'm surprised they allowed this to go on. And I'm sure Bean has complained to the platforms, right? The two media platforms?
No, exactly. And I've been bombarded with the messaging in all of my social media feeds. And so that's why after 2 or 3 weeks of me being bombarded with this, I thought, well, it must be legit. So that's why yesterday I went on and thought, I'm going to buy some Christmas gifts. But it says Ella Bean. They've talked to Ella Bean. They've contacted the government, the feds, to get Facebook to do something, and it's just been in limbo. But I think it's shameful that, again, our show's been pulled down on social media because we mentioned the event, yet you allow these scam artists in other countries to actually take advantage of people and steal from them, and that seems to be okay. But that's my social media commentary.
You sound like Mika. This morning she said something similar. She's like, all this goes on and no one does anything.
Well, that's the problem, right? That seems to be the issue. So there we have it. So today's business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So happy 54th birthday to American fashion designer, businesswoman, and philanthropist Tory Burch. She was born this day, June 17th in 1966. She's the executive chairman and chief executive officer of her own brand, Tory Burch LLC. She was listed as the 73rd most powerful woman in the world by Forbes. She was born in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia, to her mom, Reva, and dad, Bud. And she was raised with her 3 brothers right outside of PA. She actually has one of her shoes, the Reva Flat, is named after her mom, which I think is great. Her dad was an investor who inherited a stock exchange seat as well as a paper cup company. I'm getting neither. I don't know if you're going to get either of those things, John, a stock exchange seat or a paper cup company. But
it's an odd it's kind of an odd thing. Paper cups and a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, right?
That's what I thought, too. She had gone to the Agnes Irwin School in Rosemont, which is a great school. I laughed at this. Her first job was at the King of Prussia Mall, which is a huge mall outside of Philly. But her first job was at Benetton, and we actually did a Benetton business birthday a few weeks ago. She went to the University of Pennsylvania, where she studied art history. And then after graduating, she went up to New York, and she worked in for a number of different fashion houses, as well as some magazines and fashion PR. She worked for places such as Vera Wang and Polo. And then it was funny, she opened her first boutique in Manhattan at the age of 37. And this was after she took some time off at home to raise her 3 sons. And she said she launched the company in her kitchen amidst the chaos of children in the house. She had no design school training or experience running a business. And although opening a single boutique may have seemed small to some, they said that she had high hopes and aspirations. And she said she wanted to start a global lifestyle brand. And in her words, she said, I had no idea what that meant. But as of today, she has got over 250 stores, 3,000 additional locations in various department stores. And she's won all kinds of awards, particularly as it pertains to women's issues and fashion industry issues. And what I like about her is that the company started out as a socially conscious brand. And as a leader, Tory Burch herself stands for all these causes that really are true to her mission, particularly when it comes to championing women and equality in business. And she got her name Burch. She married in 1996 Christopher Burch. They have 3 sons. And here's a head scratcher. She dated Lance Armstrong in 2007. Remember that?
That was actually mentioned in the ESPN documentary that aired on 30 for 30 about 3 or 4 weeks ago. There was a string of women that he actually high-profile women. I was she before Sheryl Crow or after Sheryl Crow? Do you know?
She was after Sheryl Crow.
Sheryl Crow, okay.
Yeah, and talk about a 1 degree of separation because of people both you and I know. But I just thought that one was certainly a head scratcher. And then in November 2018, she married Pierre-Yves Roussel, who was the former chairman of LVMH, and he now works for Burch's company. So there's 2 things that I would say about this. One, she's busy. When you look at all the philanthropy and all the foundation work she's done, she's raised over $100 million for women's small businesses, loans, and entrepreneurship, and then also lots of money raised around women in healthcare, particularly with breast cancer. And so she's busy. I think she should do a men's line. I would love a men's line or a brand of maybe some home items. I'll say 3 things. She'll do a men's line, and then she should be a sponsor of the focus group. But so that's the selfish part of me. But I always like these sort of birthdays.
She should do our wardrobe. Wardrobe provided by Tory Burch.
By Tory Burch. Wouldn't it be great? My guess is she'd probably have to name it after Tory. I don't know. Could it be Tory Burch Men's?
I have no problem
do something different.
In fact, as I'm looking at her, I love her logo, and I think that could easily be translated to a line of menswear. It's just a simple color change or something if you wanted to do it that way. Right. But cool businesswoman, right? Very cool, excellent business birthday.
She was also listed, I believe. I don't know. I don't think this has changed, but at one time she was the youngest woman in business that was a billionaire. I believe Oprah was the first, but she was the youngest that was a billionaire in business. So. Happy 54th birthday to Tory Burch. Here we go. So many of you know that a partner here of ours for quite some time has been Deep Discount. Right now they've got their site-wide sale going on. We love Deep Discount because of all the great items you could find there, and we believe that they certainly have the best prices for popular items as well as hard-to-find items. So if you go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo and start shopping away. As we said, it's the site-wide summer sale. What did you find this week, Mr. Nash?
In honor of June being Pride Month, and being that since the event is eclipsing many things, the event. Sorry,
the event.
When you and I started to do that, it solves a lot of problems, but it even makes it kind of strange and funny. In honor of Pride Month, I have chosen from the Criterion Collection, which if you've watched our show a number of times, you'll know that Tim and I speak of the Criterion Collection as if it's the Holy Grail, because they do a beautiful job of remixing the movie, fixing the audio, and cramming a lot of great extras in. The film I picked is Paris is Burning. And Paris is Burning is a snapshot of the 1980s ballroom scene, and this is where voguing came from. And it looks at a number of performers that have names we all recognize now: Willie Ninja, Pepper LaBeija, Dorian Corey. And it was a film that was shot over I want to say it was like a 7-year period during the AIDS crisis, when these balls gave people an outlet, a creative outlet, a place to be special and cool. And we loved the movie when it came out, and I still can watch it end to end, and I think it's a really great documentary. Do you remember Paris is Burning? Is it one of your favorites?
I do. I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but I did really enjoy it. I haven't seen it in quite some time, and so it's good to remind me of that. I'll have to put that in my queue. And as you said, if it's part of the Criterion Collection, we know it has the kind of the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. So I love that one. I picked something that popped in my head the other day, and I just started laughing. It might have been because I've been watching the show Schitt's Creek, but it's Waiting for Guffman. And
lots of the same cast, right?
Yeah, it originally came out in 1996. It's only 84 minutes long as the movie should be, part of the Warner Archives. But I just love the description of it. It says, the town of Blaine, Missouri is preparing for celebrations of its 150th anniversary. Corky St. Clair, an off Broadway director, is putting together an amateur theater show about the town's history, starring the local dentist, here we are with a dentist, a couple of travel agents, a Dairy Queen waitress, and a car repairman. He then invites the Broadway theater critic, Mr. Guffman, to see the opening night of the show, and of course, hilarity ensues. You can get it both on DVD or Blu-ray, and for under $15 for the Blu-ray and just $12.01 for the DVD. I like this sort of humor. Some people don't like this humor. I like it for kind of the tongue-in-cheek and the irony of it. And you really have to pay attention to the dialogue and just see the characters. And there was a number of these different films that were done by Christopher Guest and the cast, as you mentioned, that I just think are hilarious.
So I'm so glad you picked this. It's one of my favorite movies. And this kind of movie making was kicked off with a film that actually is heralded as one of the top 50 films you got to watch in your lifetime. And that would be This Is Spinal Tap, the mockumentary about a heavy metal band. And we really loved Waiting for Guffman because, again, the characters are completely accessible and wacky. And Corky St. Clair as the... he goes to the town. They give him the town made stools. Remember the song? Stools, 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 stools. And he asked for like a multi-million-dollar budget. And they're like, well, we're going to give you like $500. He goes, asshole people. And Parker Posey, who I love, plays the lead actress in this centennial thing they put together, and they found her in the movie. She's from the Dairy Queen, and they're interviewing her in the movie. She's like, well, you got your blizzard, you got your snow cones. And at the very end of this movie, there's a really great scene where Corky St. Clair makes his way back to New York City, and he owns a bookstore or some kind of little gift shop, and he's got this doll set up. And off camera, you hear someone say, what is this? He goes, oh, it's the My Dinner with Andre action figures. Oh, Andre, you know all the best restaurants. And it's great pick. So,
yeah. And what was excellent. The new release this week?
Silent film fans rejoice. Another Criterion Collection movies. It's called The Cameraman, and it's on Criterion. It's Buster Keaton is at the peak of his slapstick powers in The Cameraman. It is the first film that he did when he signed on to MGM, which is, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and viewed by many critics as his last great masterpiece because he retained creative control over the project from start to finish. Keaton plays a hapless newsreel cameraman desperate to impress both his new employer and his winsome office crush as he zigzags up and down Manhattan hustling for a scoop. Along the way, he goes for a swim and winds up soaked, becomes embroiled in a Chinatown tong war. I don't know what a tong war is, and teams up with a memorable monkey sidekick, the famous Josephine. Now, that must be a monkey from famous old movies in the past. The marvelously inventive film within a film setup allows Keaton's imagination to run wild. I'm a big fan of Buster Keaton, so this is going to make its way into my collection because the silent films really had a language to them that was so brilliant. Pantomime, eyes, the whole bit. So the release this week is The Cameraman from the Criterion Collection, and that's on Blu-ray. So just to recap, folks, go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo. It's Sharky the Shark, and start your shopping. It's a site-wide summer sale. I picked Paris is Burning on Criterion Collection. Tim picked the fantastic Waiting for Guffman. Needs to be in your library. And the release this week is The Cameraman, also from Criterion Collection on Blu-ray. What do we say, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
We are going to take a super quick break, and when we return, we have a shop talk for you, which I think you'll enjoy, so stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with The Focus Group.
Try, really try.
try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com to learn all about us and find all of our free programming, both audio and video. It's over there at focusgroupradio.com, and so is our social media branded as Focus Group Radio. We haven't said hello to the boys in the booth yet. Garrett and Steve, how are you guys doing? We haven't seen your long dreads.
Doing fine.
You're doing fine?
I need a haircut.
Well, yeah.
That's what I'm figuring too. I'm wondering when I can get one, because even trying to get a haircut is a little difficult right now, I think.
But you can in Delaware, right?
You have to. There's all kinds of rules about. I actually got a pedicure, if you can believe it, which was hilarious. But
I could believe it.
You're touching your feet, and I can't even get my head touched.
Listen,
put a mask on my face.
Your toes are 6 feet away from your mouth usually. So,
yeah, but they're gross.
They had a whole screen set up. They had done this whole contraption. Essentially, there was zero contact, and of course they wore gloves anyway. But I was able to do that, and they said anything else, and I said yes if I could have a haircut, and they laughed. But they're only allowing 2 people in an hour to any of these salons, which still there's no way you could survive if that stays going. So, but or I'm just going to let my hair grow long. I thought maybe not getting a cut until December.
Well, Bob's mom has an appointment on the calendar for I think next week or something, and it's the fixation point. I'm going to get my hair done. I cut mine last night, but then again, I'm going bald, so I've got it easy. I got the clippers, and I know what to do, but I like it, and I see why you all miss getting your haircut, because it's one of those things. It's just a nice thing, right? You look in the mirror.
Well, you've cut your hair you've cut your hair for quite a while by yourself, haven't you?
Yes, for about 7 years now, maybe 7 or 8. And I remember when I went to a crew cut and I saw my old hair cutter, Tommy, from this barbershop down in Chelsea, Irish guy. And he's, "Oh, John, it's so good to see you. And I see you've given up the ghost." And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, "You gave up the ghost. You're doing your own hair now, I bet. Looks great." And I said to him, he goes, "Well, we all, because we used to cut my hair." He said, you would come in and they'd wash whatever the hair was and cut it. But the ghost was getting my hair cut at a salon. I could have done it myself, right? So you gave up the ghost and you went to cut yourself.
Did you cut Bob's hair, or did he cut it himself, or is he going long?
I gave him a event cut, as I'll call it, several weeks ago, and I kind of followed a video, and then I kind of didn't, and he ended up with a crew. So
I kind of followed a video and kind of didn't.
I couldn't figure out the feathering and this whole thing with like the top, and so it just got a crew cut. And for a while, he truly did look like Dustin Hoffman in the movie Rain Man, which people used to mistake him for in the city years ago. And I remember that we did a family Zoom call the day I gave him the cut, and everybody on this call was, "What happened to your hair?" I felt terrible, but I thought, well, it's clean and neat. So now he's telling people it's growing back, and he wants to wait to officially get it cut by a barber.
I think you should let it go long too. Would he ever let it grow out, or he's a short hair guy?
It doesn't. I think that it depends on the person, and I think with him, going long, quote unquote, I think means still having a stylist help control that process.
Right.
If that makes sense. So
I get it. Well, good for him. So, hey, today's Shop Talk, in honor of June Pride, says how lavender became a symbol of the LGBTQ resistance. This was a bit of a wonky article.
I actually liked it. I'm glad you pulled it.
Did you? It talks about how lavender, and this happens with other colors or other symbols within history, how they become associated with either certain movements or certain things. And this particularly revolves around lavender, or I would say purple, and how it got to be a color associated with the LGBTQ movement. They said they think in Western culture it started life as a color desire thanks to the lyric genius of 7th century poet Sappho, whose papyrus fragments told of her erotic predictions for younger women with violet tiaras. You almost need a... Do you understand that, John?
Yeah, I do.
I read that passage and I laughed.
No, Tim picked this, and it's a good article because it actually goes from the 1800s, well, earlier, obviously, Greek times, but mostly it went from like the 1800s forward, the 19th century. So there was a point in time where the color became very associated with aesthetes. I love that. People who are obsessed with aesthetics, and as such, it was viewed as effeminate. Not least of which is because one of its prominent users was Oscar Wilde, who frequently wrote about and reminisced about the purple hours spent with. Here, I love this. Whose purple hours spent with rent boys and provoked a moral scandal with the homoerotic themes in The Picture of Dorian Gray. I did not Dorian Gray is an interesting book because there are those things in there. But then you move ahead into the 20th century and you look at the 1930s. And this was the part that I was most fascinated by. I was not aware that people used to say things like, oh, they have a dash of lavender or a streak of lavender. Don't you have examples of this from other linguistic things? Like you used to say that there was a phrase that people used to use, light in the loafers, stuff like that.
Or he's got a touch of mint.
Yeah.
Or he's got a little gas in his tank, or, something to that effect. But I laughed at this one too. I didn't realize there was lots of rumor always about Abraham Lincoln and some of his close friendships he had with males. But they had said that, and here too they talk about Lincoln's early friendships as containing a streak of lavender and spots soft as May violets. I think we talked differently then. I don't know if we would ever say that now, would we?
Yeah, it's true.
The one thing that shocked me was this Eisenhower thing. Did you know about this?
No, and all right, I should take that back. I did, but I did not associate it with President Eisenhower. So this was a revelation to me. So why don't you tell us about that?
So it says during the McCarthy era, there was state-sanctioned discrimination when President Eisenhower signed an executive order. They gave the number 10450, which became part of a national witch hunt to purge homosexual men and women from the federal government. It was dubbed the Lavender Scare by historian David Johnson. And it led to around 5,000 federal agency employees losing their jobs based upon their sexuality. So it's funny that we're talking about this, plus what happened with not funny, but what happened with the Supreme Court this week. But I had no idea that was tagged to Eisenhower. I was kind of shocked because Eisenhower is one of those presidents you don't really hear too much about. And we were born just after he was president, right? So there was never a lot of discussion around Eisenhower. At least there never seems to be, unless I could be wrong, that I've heard of.
I had an erroneous assumption about him, and it's based on the fact that he was a general, not only a general, but like leader of the command, the Allied forces, the whole bit. And I always think of the military as the most advanced organization in terms of inclusion and diversity. Certainly, we've seen this, over the last couple of decades. But of course, Eisenhower precedes a lot of the civil rights movement and a lot of different things that changed the military moving forward. So once I put this all together in my head quickly in the timeline, I realized that, well, okay, maybe it's not so surprising that he signed this because he wasn't as, my assumption was, oh, he comes from this really cool military. They're so advanced and integrated. Not really, because his time period was a little different. And now go ahead.
No, and a lot of that's still held on into the 80s. I even know when I interviewed for a job with the government that they would harp on that question, particularly for security clearance, as to sexuality or gender and so forth. And I just remember being very uncomfortable about the whole thing, and then them saying, if you've ever experimented or anything to the effect of if you lie to us about anything, you're going to get caught and then you're going to be in bigger trouble. And I know a lot of that has changed, supposedly. We hear about it. We had talked to some people from the State Department that said that certainly changed. But when you think about it, people that were gay or lesbian or identified as such were not welcome to work in the government, at least not openly. True.
And now we have lavender as just a palette of designers, or a color that's part of the palette that designers use. And I never really think about it too much. And in fact, you and I, having grown up in Connecticut with the Preppy Handbook, I mean, who didn't have a pink shirt, right? Didn't you have to have a pink button down?
You had to have pink.
That's not lavender, but And recently, I took my mom to a medical appointment many months ago, before the event hit, and I was wearing a lavender button down and gray slacks and a pair of like loafers or business shoes or something. And I remember the nurse looking at me, and she said, "You look so handsome, so put together." She's like, "I wish more men were not afraid of color."
So she was calling you a dandy.
Just, well, in her own sweet way, I suppose she was. Yes, I'll have to go back and have words with her about
words
that.
with her. So you do, though. I was going to say you always have had, I believe, you like purples. You do like purples. You've had some purple things over the years. I remember you wearing to events. You used to like purple and camel together.
Yeah, it actually doesn't look bad on me. I think that might be why. I mean, red, navy blue, you nailed that for me years ago. You actually, I don't know how long ago you're like, these are your colors. Gray, navy blue. You had a bunch. Pink I can get away with too because of my skin tone. And lavender, like I just got a new shirt for the summer, like a short sleeve thing. It's check white and purple checked shirt, and it looks great. And I never even think about it. It's just like a color that I know I look good in. But now we have a history to it.
Yeah, and so so when we saw this article, I thought it was interesting because you don't think about sometimes how these colors get associated with different things, particularly with the LGBTQ community. Now they're saying you're going to see a lot of this, and you are seeing a lot of this on the runway in 2020, and they think a bit of it's an act of defiance of reclaiming the color. So you'll see lavender out there, and purple, of course. Last year, I think it was orange, wasn't it? Was the color? Was that the color on the runway?
Do you remember? It might have been orange, but I think they still do this. There was a company in New York called Color Box, and they used to actually pick the color. Like the color for 1998 is going to be blue, and it was a certain like cerulean blue or whatever. And then Pantone would follow suit. But I'm guessing people still do color predictions, right? For products and clothing.
Very, very much so. And for cars, and they know out a certain amount of time what the colors are going to be. Do you have a favorite color?
Blue. Blue is one of my favorites. And I have to tell you, a certain shade of lavender is also one of my favorites. So this was a good article. Hey, we have Don from Alabama on the line with some space news for us. Don, welcome to the program, sir.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to touch on real quick that the 25th, or actually the 21st, will be the 1-year anniversary of the launch of the Light Sail 2. And I'm wondering if you are following that little project from the Planetary Society.
So the Light Sail is an idea that's been many, many, many years on the drawing board. And basically the idea is it's a large piece of mylar or some very thin, gossamer thin, I love that word, foil that is pushed through space by the photonic energy of the sun. Photons actually, if I'm not mistaken, have mass and they have momentum. Am I right about that?
They have energy, and it can convert to momentum.
So
Photons have no mass. That's why they're able to travel at 186,000 miles a second.
So they put up in orbit, high Earth orbit, if I'm not mistaken, to avoid all the effects of our atmosphere and our magnetosphere, a test sail. I don't know how big it was, though, Don. It's not very big, is it?
The craft itself is about the size of a healthy loaf of bread, but the sail is about the size of a tennis court. And it has managed to climb itself up to about a 750-mile orbit, and is progressively, as it moves into an acceleration phase, climbing higher and higher. So it has climbed above the International Space Station already.
Wow!
And this is a vehicle that is moving without benefit of any engine system. It only has the slight articulations of the sail.
Power. Yeah, solely by the photonic power of the sun. Yeah. The idea here is that if you build a surface large enough that you could someday take a craft to Mars or the outer planets without any onboard fuel, which would be great because then you could change the whole equation.
Correct, and with the eventual acceleration of upwards of 100,000, being able to get up to about 60,000 miles a second.
I did not know it could go that fast. That's, of course, let's talk about braking now. No.
Braking's later. It's, acceleration first, then braking. That's where you get into the fun part of it. It's not getting up to speed. It's the stopping. That's the fun part.
Hey Don, do you happen to know when the Dragon is coming back from the space station? Many of you know that SpaceX launched a crew capsule in partnership with NASA to the International Space Station. It was this highly successful mission. They're up there now with the Dragon. Well, are they staying for a long time, or is that coming back soon?
They're going to stay up for about 14 weeks, and then there will be a return. But that's contingent upon a couple of other things, as well as a follow-on potential resupply mission. So, look for a return, 12 to 16 weeks out from their docking day.
Wow. I would probably, we've talked about this before. I've often said I'll pay cash money to go up there and sit by that window in the space station for hours.
What are you looking at?
You're looking at the Earth below.
Is there a translator up there? Do the Russians know English? Because I know the English don't know. We don't know Russian. I bet, right?
Well, actually, most of the guys who flew on the Russian craft got a fairly healthy amount of bilingual training. The Russians had a functioning, at least the Russians I interacted with had a functioning understanding of English. But when you got into the technical stuff, fortunately everyone speaks math, but if you wanted a really good job at NASA over the last 10 years, learn to speak Russin, and you had it made.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting. Yeah,
Well,
I wondered about that up there. Whether there's so few people, if there was a language issue, or is English the international language in space?
English is the international language in space, and the metric system is the international system of measurement. Is the system of measurement.
So we got one for
two. The only one who still functions with the inches and feet and miles.
The good old imperial system, which threw me for a massive loop this week. I'm not even going to go into what I had to deal with. It was such a math problem. It was about square footage, square inches, and I'm like, what's so much easier if you could divide by 10, which is the metric system.
Well, once we slammed a $3.5 billion spacecraft into Mars because we didn't convert from yards to meters correctly, we figured out we should stop doing that.
All right, Don. Thank you for calling in, my friend.
Thanks.
Have a really great week.
Bye.
It's time to convert to a new measurement system.
Well, that
Anything else
me,
you want to go over, Mr. Bennett?
Well, no, just on that point about measurement. One time at the Detroit Motor Show, they decided they were going to bring all these displays in from Europe. And, of course, they were done. The measurements were all different. So these escalators and all these things were short. They didn't fit correctly. So they were building all these. They had to quickly build boxes and so forth for people to walk up onto the escalators because they weren't long enough. And it was a real disaster. But that is an issue because as Americans, we've stuck by. I think our generation was the last. They gave up after us. Remember they tried to teach us the metric system and Celsius and we had none of it.
I still grapple with 0 degrees Fahrenheit versus what that is in Celsius or Kelvin. And what is the United Kingdom is still on the imperial system, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's the only two. Yeah. But if it's 32, 32 is 0. No. Because if you watch their weather, even Canada with their weather. My grandmother in Canada at the time. My grandmother in Canada, when they changed over right before the U.S. was supposed to, which they said is one of the reasons the U.S. did not, but it was a disaster because Canada was built, a lot of their homes, and think about it, curtains and bedding and everything was built in the old system. And so even making a cake with ingredients, instead of a half a cup, it was now 300 milliliters or whatever. And everything was a disaster. It ended up being a real problem to try to convert all the measurements correctly because people, what was a cup now? Who knew what a cup was or a half gallon or a quart?
And I think we grew up at a point where it was sort of solidified that we had a visual representation in our head of what something was. Like I could basically look at something and say, it's 2 feet. That's like this connection you make that if you had to change that, that's 22 centimeters, something like that, right?
Or your curtains, right? If you're hanging curtains in your house and you knew the ceiling's about 9 feet tall or whatever. And so, it's, I don't think we'll ever change back. I guess. I don't know. The way the world is now, that's probably the least of our worries, right?
Least of, indeed, the metric versus the imperial system. All right, we're going to hold it and wrap it up there. We want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Check out Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast, and you can find that at focusgroupradio.com, along with all the information about me and Tim and our shows. We want to thank Deep Discount for being a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. This week, the new release is The Cameraman by Buster Keaton. I picked a movie called Paris is Burning, and Tim picked Waiting for Guffin because Deep Discount's got a site-wide summer sale going on, and the prices are fantastic. Go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo, start your shopping, and again, check out Magic Spoon cereal, and use Focus to get free shipping. I think you're going to fall in love with it. It's a treat for adults that actually gives you protein. So, hey, not so bad. Everybody, don't text and drive, arrive alive, and have a very good week.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.